America's election headquarters and the countdown to a big showdown in Wisconsin. Voters there go to the polls less than 24 hours from now, and the Real Clear Politics average of polls in that state show a very tight race between Hillary Clinton and Senator Bernie Sanders. Sanders now leading by 2 percentage points as both Democratic candidates debate about a future debate before the next big contest. That's in New York in April. Joining us now, Harlan Hill, Democratic strategist, and Hogan Gidley, a Republican strategist and a former communications director for Huckabee for President, Governor Mike Huckabee. Thank you, both of you, for joining us. I want to ask you about this, if I could, Harlan, the impasse over the debate. What is going on with that? Why can't they come down and just figure out a time and date to debate?
So this comes down to one thing. Hillary Clinton is afraid of facing Bernie Sanders head on right now. Sanders finally has some fight in him. I'm glad to see it. And Hillary, up until this point, has really gotten a free pass in a lot of these debates, which is a disservice to both Democratic voters and herself. And so she's afraid to face him when there's a significant audience. And so they're trying to cherry pick time slots and channels where nobody's going to watch. That's what this comes down to.
And Hogan, then let me ask you about this. I'm sorry, it's Heather and Hogan and Harlan. So apologies for all the name mishaps here. But there's some folks from the Bernie Sanders campaign have been talking to the New York Times. And I want to read a portion of what the New York Times writes today. Quote, allies and advisors of Mr. Sanders say they missed opportunities to run an aggressive political operation in 2015 that would have presented a challenge to Mrs. Clinton. She has now firmly built a big lead in delegates needed to clinch the nomination, a margin that would have been smaller if Mr. Sanders had run differently last year, according to interviews with more than 15 people who are on his team or close to him. Why are they sounding so defeatist?
Well, it's tough to know that. I mean, look, he's got the money, he's got the momentum, he's got the message. The problem is he doesn't have the math. And as, you know, uninspiring as mathematics is in a presidential election, it looks like Hillary Clinton is way out in front. She's going to take home this nomination. And there's some frustration on the Bernie side because he had the chance early on to begin to really position her as someone who is a slave to Wall Street. He did that later on, but he had some early chances to knock her back. I think the main issue here is most people I talk to in Democrat politics, Harlan may agree, may not, but the folks I know in the Democrat Party tell me that they felt like Bernie Sanders was just not really running a real presidential campaign early, but just wanted to be a message candidate to show how different he was, talk about some of his issues on socialism and things like that, and how we need to redistribute wealth. But he didn't want to take on Hillary Clinton directly because he felt like she was going to be the eventual nominee.
Interesting.
And he didn't want to damage her moving into the general. And one more point, remember, the Michael Dukakis ad that George H.W. Bush ran with Willie Horton, that wasn't a Republican attack. That came from Al Gore in the Democrat primary. So these primaries can hurt you in the general, and I don't think Bernie Sanders want to be part of that.
Well, what about that idea? Do you think that maybe Bernie Sanders' entire goal was to try to push Democrats more to the left, and he was never really in it to win it?
I think Hogan, or I'll agree with Hogan to an extent, in that I think Bernie Sanders was surprised about the degree of support that he was able to realize from the Democratic establishment, or I'm sorry, Democratic voters. And this really comes down to one thing. I think that their calculus was that there aren't enough socialists, Democratic socialists, to support Bernie Sanders and get him over the top, and that he was going to change the agenda and policy trajectory of the Democratic Party as a message candidate. What we've actually seen is that Sanders' core base of support are young voters. They're not really socialists. They're people that just don't have jobs. They don't have opportunity. And so they're gravitating towards a candidate like Sanders that has hope. And so it's Hillary. The problem that I see for Democrats is that Hillary Clinton can't really capitalize on that. She feels like an agent of the past as opposed to an agent of the future. And I think that this is a real problem for Democrats going forward. The fact that we haven't properly litigated Hillary Clinton's legacy and her time at the State Department through this Democratic primary process is a real problem for Democrats as well. Bernie Sanders' lack of willingness to really take Hillary Clinton on in debates and outside of debates on the email scandal, Benghazi, and a whole host of other issues, her support of the Iraq War is a real problem.
Well, why didn't he go after her on that? I mean, she's so open to that and never went after her on the server investigation or anything else.
It is I'm going to use the phrase again. It is a tremendous disservice to Democratic voters and the Democratic process, for that matter, that we have not properly laid this out. I don't know why he did. He says that he wanted to run an issue-oriented campaign. I think that's a real cop-out.
That certainly is an issue. Harlan Hill, we're going to have to leave it there. We lost Hogan Gidley just a second ago. Gentlemen, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again real soon.